So joining us to talk about that and many other things is Helena Kerschner.
Hello, I'm Helena. I write and I talk primarily about trans issues from my perspective as someone who detransitioned and identified as trans for about 5 years.
So you're biologically female,
Mm-hmm.
transitioned to male or man, or how would you do, what's the proper terminology?
Well, I wouldn't say that I transitioned to a man because I was never a man, but I did identify as various flavors of non-binary and then eventually as a boy, and I took testosterone for about 1.5 years.
Oh wow! And now you identify as a woman.
Yes. Well, I am a woman.
How did you come to be trans, and then how did you come to not be?
Yeah, so it wasn't like I just woke up one day and went from being myself to wanting to be a boy. So growing up, I wasn't like super masculine or anything. I was never even really like a tomboy. I feel like I had like a good even mix of like girl typical, boy typical interests and stuff. So it really started for me when I started using the internet a lot. For me, it was Tumblr that I started using the most. And on Tumblr, there is a strong emphasis on like social justice ideology. And so in order to participate in those communities, you have to adopt a lot of those beliefs. So I kind of adopted those like radical progressive beliefs about gender and race and everything, honestly. And in that environment, it's highly encouraged to like experiment with your gender identity. Like you see all of these messages that are just like, oh, well, if you don't like your body, that's a sign that you're trans. Or if you read certain kinds of fan fiction, that's a sign that you're trans. And you should change your pronouns. You should cut your hair and just see how it feels. And then every time you do that, you cut your hair to see how it feels, or you change your pronouns, then everybody comes and like lavishes positive attention on you. So I think it was like
Grooming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
literally.
but it's for me, in my case, I know that there are legitimate cases of grooming where adults actually, I mean, there are trans activists who brag about how many minors they've sent hormones to through the mail. So that definitely is a thing that happens. But for me, it was mostly like just other teenagers who were going through, I don't know, loneliness, depression, eating disorders are also really common, who were just kind of all latching on to this idea that they were born in the wrong body, or they're meant to be someone else, and they can just discover that and then they can bring that into the real world.
That must feel very difficult, to think that you are not actually yourself, or you are not actually the person whose body that you occupy.
I would say it's very easy for someone who's disconnected from reality and doesn't have a lot of ties to like the real physical world. Like for context, in my adolescence, I was one of those kids who like, I didn't really play any sports. I didn't have a lot of friends in real life. I mainly just kind of was online doing creative things like writing and doing art and talking to other people online. So I think it's easy to get lost in, like, especially as a creative person, you can get lost in these ideas about who you are and what you can become.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to clarify, by difficult, I don't necessarily mean it's difficult to pull off or do. I'm saying it sounds like it would be painful, no, to feel as though you had not matched what you were meant to be. It's possible I'm off base here.
Yeah, I think the feelings that brought me to search for that were painful. So I was like, I had a ton of self-esteem issues. Yeah. I had depression and all this kind of stuff. So that was incredibly painful. But the idea that, the source of all that pain was that I was meant to be another gender and that I can transition and it'll fix everything, that wasn't painful.
Interesting.
How did you...
Can I just ask, I just got to ask that you mentioned fan fictions. What were people saying that fan fiction said about your gender identity?
Yes. So one thing on Tumblr that is very, very popular, it's not fringe at all, it's very popular, is like male fan fiction. It's like gay fan fiction. And so people will say that, oh, if you're a girl and you read gay fan fiction, that is like the number one sign that you're actually a boy inside. What? Yeah.
How old were you when you first got into the Tumblr?
13.
Chats? 13.
And so how did you come to change and move away from all of that?
So it actually took bringing that into the real world by, actually trying to look like a boy and like act like a boy and be in like male spaces using the men's restroom. I actually did that. It was just like, holy crap, like this is not right for me at all.
But you were taking testosterone for a year
Yeah.
and a half?
Yeah, I was taking testosterone for a year and a half, and another part of it that made me really regret it and realize that it was a mistake is the fact that the testosterone had extremely negative effects on me.
Like what?
So for me, it was mostly psychological. I wasn't on it for long enough for it to have like any long-term physical effects, but just it really destabilized me. And another piece of context is that the people who prescribed me 4 times the dosage that I should have started on. And that's a whole other story we can get into if you want. Yeah. So basically I got my testosterone from Planned Parenthood, and it was just one appointment. I walk in, they talk to me for like 20 minutes, and then I sit down with a nurse practitioner, and she says, okay, we're going to start you on like 25 milligrams. And then I say to her, well, I think that I need more because my hips are big. So I think I have extra estrogen and I'm going to need more testosterone to look like a boy. And she did not push back on that whatsoever. And she just asked me like, okay, well, how high would you like to go? And then I said, what's the highest we can do? And she said, okay, we'll start you on 100 milligrams. And then,
wow.
Yeah, I just got sent out
Planned
the door.
Parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And they're
Yes.
bad people, it turns out.
Yeah.
Was it like any physical nausea or anything?
No.
Did you want to fight people?
Yes, that was the thing.
Really?
Like I literally was just completely transformed into like a different person. Like the way I describe it is like I stopped having a wide spectrum of emotion, and instead of like, okay, something happens and it makes me feel abandoned, so then I'm nervous, so then I'm sad, so then I cry. I would just go straight from like point A to point I'm going to
Anger.
Now you know what it's
punch
like
somebody.
to be a guy.
That sounds
That's what they always
sounds
say.
about right.
I was
Yeah.
nodding to
Testosterone
Seamus.
is
I'm like,
crazy.
Yeah,
That's-
Tim
it's
and I
like-
had a moment. We're like, yeah,
it's like
right.
you're a
What the
dude
heck?
and you're like working in the backyard and you're like trying to hammer a nail, and then you hit the nail and the nail drops. You get angry. Ah!
Yes.
You're skateboarding, you're trying to do a trick. You miss. It's angry. Ah!
And
you
like-
walk into the kitchen to get a sandwich. There's no more roast beef. Ah!
And like, you
just
know-
punching things.
That, but imagine you're actually a neurotic 18-year-old girl.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
you had it all. That's amazing.
I
Yeah,
remember
it's horrible.
there was a Simpsons joke about that where Ralph or something was taking. No, it was Martin. He was like, they put me on testosterone. You want to fight?
Dude, there was another really good bit. It was a Halloween special, and Bart's talking to these robots, and they're like, "You're a human. What's it like to have feelings?" He's like, "I said I'm a human, not a girl."
Helena, was there other chemicals than testosterone that they put on you or that you used or anything?
Oh, not that well, I was on a bunch of psych meds also is the other thing. Because the testosterone, very fun. The rage attacks that it sent me into were so intense that I ended up actually hurting myself.
Oh man.
And
Wow.
yeah, so I had to be hospitalized twice for these reasons.
Rage.
Yeah, like it was like totally nothing that I was ever prepared for. I don't even think it's normal for like men. Like I think it was beyond what is normal.
Yeah, well, I mean, some people have anger problems, I guess.
But psych
Yeah,
meds
maybe-
mixing it up.
But they put you on. That your body isn't meant for that stuff, right? It makes
Exactly.
sense that
Yeah,
there'd
my
be
body's
some-
not meant for it, and it was 4 times the dose I was supposed to be on.
I wonder if the aggressive trans movement that we're witnessing is part of a testosterone uptake.
Yes. Yeah, literally, yes. It's a bunch of people with endocrine disorders induced by the doctors and nurses that they're seeing to treat their gender dysphoria.
So they're
And that's
getting,
the-
they're
Explain
getting
more
a
about
lot of
that.
testosterone, and they're getting aggression because of it.
A lot of testosterone, and men who are on estrogen. Like people's, like your brain and your body is meant to work on the hormones that you're meant to produce. You're not going to be a mentally or physically healthy person if you're taking a bunch of testosterone as a woman or a bunch of estrogen and suppressing your testosterone as a man.
And isn't it insane that not only is that a controversial thing to say nowadays, but that it's not even just not commonsensical. Like people are angry with us for pointing this out, and they're angry with you for saying, "Hey, like I actually did it. It doesn't work."
So I tweeted this. It's strange that if you oppose sex change surgery for minors, you're considered right wing.
Yeah.
Like, hands down. And the 2 responses I got were people saying, you're a transphobe, or you're a liar, that's not happening. And so it seems like there's probably a lot of people who align themselves with Democrats of the left who don't realize what is happening, both with chemical intervention and surgical intervention for minors.
They don't. I mean, a friend of mine, he goes by Billboard Chris on Twitter. He does this thing where he goes out to various public spaces and he has conversations with people about this trans stuff. And he was talking to this young woman about how kids are being sterilized, which is what happens if a child is put on puberty blockers and then cross-sex hormones, they will be sterilized. That's not debatable.
Cross-sex hormones?
Cross-sex hormones.
Cross-sex.
That's not debatable. They will be infertile. They will be sterilized. And this young woman who was so passionately arguing with him, she refused to believe that children were being sterilized. She was like, that's not happening. That's not happening. It's like, no, that's happening to thousands of children.
It's
in
such
this country.
It's new technology. I think what you were saying, it's important that we have the conversation. People may get angry about stuff in general, but it's such a new technology. It's important that we open up the debate.
Well, we do have this from the Christian Post, which I'm sure the left will not be happy with, but NewsGuard has certified them at 74.5, which I must add is substantially higher than the Daily Beast. So don't come to me with that. And they say puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones do sterilize children, hospital consent docs show.
And it could be interesting, too, to see their citation, because I would imagine it's not going to be coming from their own.
The informed consent documents from Children's Hospital Los Angeles, obtained by the California Family Council, revealed the hospital has also warned patients and parental guardians that drugs do indeed yield infertility in those who undergo the experimental procedures.
Just think about it, okay? So the way that your body matures and you become fertile, you achieve sexual development, is because your sexual organs, whether they are testicles or ovaries, during the process of puberty, they receive the hormones that they're supposed to receive. So testicles during puberty receive or make testosterone, and that is what allows you to be a fertile male. And it's the same for a woman with estrogen and progesterone and all that kind of stuff, the menstrual cycle. If you suppress a child's puberty so that that never happens, and then you put the wrong hormones into their body, their organs are never going to get what they need to develop to become a fertile adult.
And it's irreversible?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, once you miss that boat, right, it's not like they can put you through puberty later on. You don't develop, you don't develop. I'm curious, speaking of giving this stuff to young people, how old were you when Planned Parenthood prescribed this?
So I was 18.
Okay, so you were of age.
Yeah,
okay.
I was. But I also, I don't know how meaningful that distinction is, because it's not like, oh, I'm 17 and I'm turning 18 tomorrow. Now I'm a child that deserves protection, but then that next day on my birthday I no longer deserve any protection, and anything I want to do to my body, if I want to walk into a Planned Parenthood and get 100 milligrams of testosterone, there's nothing wrong with that Planned Parenthood for prescribing me that.
Well, it's also insane in any context that a doctor would say, well, the patient who has never been on this medicine before, let's say it was a legitimate treatment, which it isn't, but even if it was, for a doctor to say this patient who's never taken this medicine before is telling me they need more of it, so I'm going to give them more of it.
It was a nurse.
How irresponsible.
It wasn't even
or
a doctor.
a nurse.
It was
Yeah.
a
The
nurse
nurse
had the authority.
Nurse practitioner, yeah.
Nurse practitioner, and she
They
had
do.
or he or she had the authority to up your dosage without a doctor present.
Yeah, and no blood work either. That's another thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what? I mean, what was the
Planned
process?
And I
Parenthood
have
doing this.
I have all
Yeah,
the
they killed
records. I can back all of this up.
In Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
It's just
They're the most evil organization on the
right for
planet.
controversy, man. Wow.
And most people don't even know.
And I want to ask you, what were the first parts of the process that really led up to the medical intervention? I mean, did you have to see a therapist first? What did you need to show the people at Planned Parenthood in order to be able to get this prescription?
I needed to show them $200 in cash.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Profit.
So they wanted to see green pictures of dead presidents.
Yes.
And that was
That's
it.
all. They
Yes.
didn't ask
That was
for
the
any
proof.
medical
Got them
records.
excited.
They didn't ask for any information from a therapist
Nope.
or counselor or psychologist. None of it. Just
Nope.
money. Give us
Yes.
the money. We'll give you this medication.
If you'd been
Yes.
17, would they have needed your parents to come in or something?
In my state, yes. But there are states, like for example, Oregon, it's 15. You don't need parental consent to get any hormones or surgeries in Oregon at 15. And I believe it's the same in California. And there are several states that are like that.
Wasn't it like DC tried to make it so that if you were 11, you can get vaccinated without telling your parents?
Oh my gosh.
That's unbelievable.
Like this is the crazy thing. This is why we're seeing the thing in Florida, the Parental Rights and Education Bill, because parents have a right to know what's happening with their children. And I'll ask you about this. You followed the Parental Rights and Education Bill, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Lies once again from the left.
Absolutely. It's just, they do it all the time with everything. The trans movement does this. They attach everything to gay rights because they understand that, many, many, many more people support, the idea that taking a gay person to some horrible conversion conversion therapy camp is terrible. Or, you know, most people, I think, would kind of not be super threatened about the idea of a teacher, I guess, explaining to a child why the other kid in their class has two fathers or something like that. So they take those things that people, you know, accept and are not as controversial, and they just smuggle in the gender ideology and the transing kids with it.